What is the most unexplainable thing that ever happened to you? 2 days after one of my closest and dearest friend died, we were semi-expecting it after he was in a terrible accident, I fell asleep in the library at school. This was after a horrific couple of days trying to process everything and function normally. I was massively sleep-deprived. I placed my head in my arms on the library desk, and I woke up and there he was beside me. It was a scenario that had happened so many times. Us revising and hanging out in the library together, whispered jokes and banter, that it didn't feel strange at all. We stood up and wandered around, watched one librarian putting books away on shelves. There was a girl reading a book sitting on the floor with sickly bright yellow socks. My friend made some silly dad joke about them being too loud for the library. We chatted in low voices about nothing much, the usual chit-chat, and then went back to the desks. Woke up and he was gone. Of course, I was startled but weirdly euphoric. I went over the same set of shelves and had déjà vu, saw the same librarian putting away the books and the same girl with the yellow socks still there, sat on the floor reading. I swear to this day I hadn't seen them before I went to sleep. I like to think it was his way of saying goodbye. It helped me immensely, even though I know it was probably just a dream. But the socks thing has always stuck with me, and any time I see a pair of loud yellow socks, not very often, I think of him and our final chat. A really strong feeling kept me out of a high-rise building during an earthquake. I was staying late at work with some colleagues. Our office was located around the 40th to 50th floor of the building. I suddenly had a really strong thought that, wow, if an earthquake were to hit now, the dash downstairs would be chaotic. I tried to brush it off but couldn't. The feeling was so strong. And it's not like I'm not used to working in high-rise buildings. I'd been working at the place for around 2 years at that point, and had never felt that way before I decided to leave and work from home, which was only 15 minutes away on foot. Just as I arrived at home, an earthquake struck. It was pretty intense, and thankfully everyone at the office was all right, just freaked out. But it was so strange that something just told me to leave just minutes before it happened. When I was around 15, my parents left me home alone for the weekend, Friday night to Sunday later afternoon, and I was thinking, this is awesome. I can chill, play games all weekend, and eat what I want. Went to sleep Friday night, and then woke up to my mum waking me up to what I thought was the next morning. So I asked, what happened? I thought you were going out the whole weekend. To which she replied, what are you talking about? It's 4 p.m. Sunday. I have no idea what happened to those 2 days. I didn't leave the house. There was no food or washing up that had changed since they left. I hadn't looked at my phone. There were unread messages from Saturday morning, but I refused to believe I was asleep the whole time. I had a living room in my parents' 2-story house that connected to stairs leading to the second floor of the house. You could see completely down the hall on the second floor from the couch in the living room. One time my family went away on vacation, so I had my cousin come over while I house sat for them. I'd been alone in this house for a couple of days now, and I just really wanted company. We're sitting on this couch playing Xbox or something. The stairs leading to the second floor are almost out of my vision. At the very top of the stairs on the left is a doorway leading to a bathroom, and nothing else. We were up pretty late gaming when out of the corner of my eye I saw a grey face lean out and stare at me for a split second. I didn't budge, I just barely noticed it. But as soon as I did, it was gone. I hadn't snapped to look at it, nor did I say anything. I just continued gaming for about 3 seconds, until my cousin said, "Did you just see that?" As soon as our eyes connected, we both knew we saw the same thing. The second my cousin said that, I felt my heart sink. It scared the shit out of me to have him pretty much confirm what I saw, but brushed off. I had immediately assumed it was just one of those blurs, or darting shadows you get in the corner of your eyes at times. The creepiest part is that it slid out as if it were lying on the floor. Its head was at level with the top of the steps right at the bottom of the bathroom door frame. It just sorta slid out, stared, then slid back again. I just saw it from the corner of my eyes. But it appeared to be grey-skinned with black hair from our combined description. We went upstairs and checked the whole bathroom, including the insides of luggage bags in the closet. We never found anything. Edit. To this day, I still can't have a door in my house open. I'm afraid I'll be looking down the hall and some grey-skinned creature will just lean half its face out to silently stare at me. and then vanish. I was walking to my friend's house one summer, maybe 10 or 11 years ago. Anyways, sunny day, couple clouds, but otherwise it's bright out, perfect visibility, when a perfectly rectangular shadow comes up from the direction behind me on the ground, maybe 15-inch by 30-inch in size, traveling just faster than a car that goes over top of me. I'm looking at the shape on the ground as it goes over, and when I do look up to the sky, I don't see anything that could have possibly cast it. Even the clouds were just trailing little wisps. I looked back down and it was going over some houses. And then it was gone forever. So yeah, the weirdest thing was a mystery rectangle shadow. I guess it was a coincidence, but when I was little I used to go outside in the mornings to pet a cat that lived under my home. I used to play with her every day. One night I had a dream that she died, so I woke up distraught, went out to our usual place, and I called out for her. She never came out, and I never saw her again since the dream. When I was about 11, we took in a dog for somebody who was very old. He wasn't in great health anymore, but we were supposed to be his final happy home. Since we lived out in the middle of nowhere, we had him for about a year when one night I just randomly decided to go outside. To sit with him and pet him, I sat outside and laid down on him. He was a big dog, for probably an hour, even though it was a pretty chilly winter night. Before anybody thinks we were leaving him out in crazy cold temperatures, he refused to go indoors, and we kept a space heater in a sheltered area he would lay down in. I don't know what possessed me to say it, but I gave him a big hug right before I went inside and told him it was okay to go. The next morning, my mom woke me up to tell me that he had passed away in the night. I helped her move his body to somewhere not out in the middle of the open so the owner could come say their final goodbye. Honestly, I still don't understand how I knew, but I think I just empathized with his pain and told him it was okay to let go and not have to keep living for us. Something similar happened to my dad. We had an Australian Shepherd. He was 14, I think. He was my dog, but I was on deployment overseas. Anyways, my dad went to work knowing his name is Seymour. Seymour was not doing well. He had a bad feeling in the middle of the day and went home to check on Seymour. He was in the same spot my dad found him in the morning and didn't move at all. He got up, crawled on my dad's lap, rested his head on my dad, and died right in his arms like he was waiting for him to come home so he could die with someone he loved. Not me, but my parents. In the place they used to live in, there was this old couch. My mom sometimes would walk by in the middle of the night and see a silhouette sitting there. She describes it as a man sitting down with a hat on, just sitting there. She saw it several times but thought nothing of it. She never told my dad, who one day said to her, "It's weird, but sometimes in the middle of the night, I think I see a man sitting down on the couch doing nothing." So yeah, they both saw the same man sitting on this couch, and they told each other after they both seen it. Was home alone with my sister, who was about 3 at the time. She's sleeping in my room, and I walk out to go to the bathroom. No one else is in the house, but as I'm in there handling business, I start hearing the chairs moving in the kitchen. I come out of the restroom and look to my left, where I find the dining table chair moved and placed perfectly staring down the hallway. Go back to check on my sister, and she's still sleeping. I walked around the house to see if my parents were home, and nothing. Doors and windows were shut. No way wind would have pushed this chair 5 feet and turned it to face down the hall. During this time, I was constantly being woken up at 3 a.m. almost every night and felt a cold hand placed on my left pec over my heart. Spooky crap. I have this weird dream about a very specific house. I am never able to describe that house apart from the fact that I know it's an old mansion with small rooms, but I recognize it with a very familiar feeling every time I dream about it. In reality, when I was very young, like less than 4 to 5 years old, I was afraid of going to the bathroom alone because I thought there was an old man in it with a baker's hat. I still remember his face. One night, I was forced by my mother to go alone and be brave, and I swear, there he was just standing there. I froze in fear, and then I remember running back until I ran into my mother, who was just standing there with a weird look on her face. All she said was, "See, I told you it's nothing to be afraid of," in a shaky voice, and she pulled me away from there. I think she saw him, but couldn't process it herself. When I was 15 years old, I was taking a shower at home. The rest of my family was out, and it was around 9:30 at night, I believe. Anyway, I hear someone knock on the bathroom door while I'm showering, so I call out, "I'll be out in a second," thinking it's just my dad or one of my brothers getting home. There was silence for a few moments, and then knocking again, only this time it was pounding, like someone was knocking on it with their fists, trying to break it down bare-handed. It was a little creepy, but my dad always loved to prank us, so I didn't think too much of it. I decided to get a towel around me and see what the hell his problem was anyway, but when I opened the door, no one was there. The house was locked up. No open windows. No cars in the driveway. I checked every floor, every room. No one else was at home. That was the first occurrence. The weird happenings continued in smaller ways until we moved out of that house, to the point that we imagined it to be some sort of poltergeist and named them Edgar. Not totally unexplainable, and can just call it coincidence if you don't believe in sorcery. When I was in kindergarten, or maybe first grade, we had a blackout at my school, and this kid goes, "Wait, I'll light a match," and proceeded to pretend to light an invisible match, and the lights came back on, and we cheered for him. Then he said, "Oh, it's too hot," and he blew it out. Then the lights went back out. Wizardry. I didn't personally witness this, but at the time my family was sufficiently freaked out by it and it was talked about a lot. One morning, my autistic brother went into my parents' room at like 3 a.m. He woke them up to tell them that his grandmother was very old and was going to die. They got a call later that day that she indeed died in her sleep that night, but he's autistic and significantly disabled. So it's not like we could just ask him how he knew that or why he said it. He did a lot of other weird psychic crap over the years, but that was the spookiest one. Years ago, my buddy and a friend of his were out in the boonies, lighting off fireworks for the 4th of July. We go out to the cars to light the stick for igniting the fireworks. As my buddy's buddy is in the car doing so, I look up at all the stars, completely unused to seeing so many. As I'm looking, something just feels off. I finally pinpoint it and start squinting my eyes, looking away and back. Everything I can think of to make sure that I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing. It's one point of light, absolutely identical to the stars around it. Except for one weirdness, it's doing a steady, repeating figure 8. I turned to my buddy to ask him about it, and I saw him staring at the same area of sky. So I asked him, "Do you see what I see?" I hadn't said a word about what I saw, but he answered back, "A star doing a figure 8? I've tried to explain it by any logical means over the years, but nothing quite matches up, and I refuse to accept that a figure 8 in space is the alien teenager version of doing donuts in a parking lot." It was 4 in the morning. I was lying on the bed and watching a video on YouTube. Suddenly, I felt like someone jumped upon the edge of the bed. At first I thought it was one of the cats, but turning my head on the chairs on which they usually slept, I made sure that both of my cats were there. The worst thing was that they were looking exactly at the edge of the bed. Turning around, I saw an imprint there as if someone was sitting there or something small was lying. As soon as I looked at it, it disappeared. When I was 9 years old, my best friend and I were crossing a busy street on the way home from school. Normally we were careful, but I was distracted by a black cat following us down the road. We stopped, and she bent down to pat him while I turned around to cross the street. Not thinking to look both ways, a silver car was directly to my right, about to hit me. I froze up, like a deer in headlights. My friend was screaming. Then suddenly, it was on my left. It didn't swerve, wasn't in another lane. The car was just suddenly on my other side. Speeding away, I ran across the rest of the road, and my friend asked how I had passed through the car. Everything looked a bit strange. Her shape was fuzzy and doubled. It was a clear day and the sun was shining, even though it had been overcast and windy on the other side of the road when I glanced back. The black cat was staring at me from the other side. Then he just strolled away. I know it was just an optical illusion, and I had probably just missed the car by a fraction of a second and was just rattled later. I thought about it for years afterwards, though. We were staying in France with a friend's family. He spoke French, but his family didn't. They had a large bedroom with 2 double beds on 2 adjoining walls. I have 3 brothers, and we were all very young, so the 4 of us were sharing the 2 beds. I woke up in the middle of the night to see a woman in a pink dress sitting on a chair next to the opposing bed. She was knitting. There was a man in a brown suit standing next to her, one arm on her shoulder. Suddenly she stopped, looked at me, and ran towards me. I blinked and they were gone. Now, there are no pictures in the house of these two wearing these clothes. I didn't know who they were, nor the relevance of what they were doing. We were told, via the friend, that this was the bedroom of his grandparents. She used to sit there and knit. They were buried in a pink dress and brown suit. I don't believe in ghosts, but I have no rational explanation for what I saw. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications for more awesome content.